specifically within the stimulus. And so flaw questions fall within this category of being a top-down. And so that means that we tend to want more mild answer choices. I'm not going to go into too much depth today on this. I do have a video, like a short video on YouTube to talk about this concept if you want to know more about it, but just so we can keep moving. But so flaws are going to be top down. In our flaw questions, I think that it's pretty easy to recognize our different stimuluses. Which of the following most accurately describes the flaw? It might say the error of reasoning, most vulnerable to criticism, or the reasoning in the argument is questionable because. I just was going over a practice test the other day, or a section, and I think there were 5 flaw questions in one section. So this is one of the, if not the most common question type on the LSAT. But what makes flaws so important is, are there flaws on the LSAT other than in flaw questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, good. I have a Zoom user. Yes. Why? Okay. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh, it's me. It's Zach, by the way. I'm in the car. That's why I'm calling in.
Oh, hey, Zach. Thank you, Zach. Okay, Angelica, can you go ahead and tell us why flaws are so important beyond just flaw questions?
Because sometimes there's a flaw in parallel flaws. It's another type of flaw question type. There's also like in strengthen and weaken law. I see those, or sufficient assumptions. It kind of like the premises jump to the conclusion and you're thinking of how to fix it, and that's the flaw. So you kind of have to apply the concept.
Yes, excellent, Angelica. Okay, so this is something I didn't learn until like halfway through my LSAT studying that would have been a game changer. Yes, we have flaw questions, but strengthen, weaken, sufficient assumption, necessary assumption questions, all of those questions are also flawed. Most of the arguments on the LSAT are flawed. And what does it mean when something's flawed? Jenny?
It's not supported by the premise.
100% supported, right?
Yeah.
And so the argument that I always say is it's hot outside, therefore we should get ice cream. What is my premise and what is my conclusion, Brittany?
Your premise is it's hot outside and your conclusion is you should get ice cream.
Yes. Is this a valid argument? Thumbs up if you think it's valid, thumbs down if you don't think so.
You need another premise?
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Brittany's like, yeah, whenever it's hot outside, we're getting ice cream. Jenny's saying yes, Zach. Oh, we have a lot of yeses. Okay, so, well, I want to agree with you in the real world, I agree with you that this is a completely valid argument. But in LSAT world, this isn't. Because what does getting hot outside technically have to do with anything about when we should get ice cream or not? What if we're lactose intolerant? Does that mean if it's hot outside and I'm lactose intolerant, does that mean I'm for sure going to get ice cream? So what happens so often on this test is there's arguments that seem reasonable, but being reasonable is not enough. And so that's why we want to find a flaw in every single argument that we come across. If there's a conclusion, we want to be looking at the support and asking ourselves, how can I kill this argument? So for example, it's hot outside, therefore I should get ice cream. If we were all playing devil's advocate, what could we add to this, or why is this invalid? Go ahead and put something in the chat of why this argument sucks. Be like, that's bull crap, that's not true. I'll put them so everybody can see. Yeah, so we have some people saying like, I'm allergic to ice cream. There aren't any ice cream shops close by. Yeah, or if this is your 3-year-old daughter saying, hey mom, it's hot outside, or hey dad, it's hot outside, let's go get ice cream. Well, what if they haven't had dinner yet? Are you gonna go get ice cream? Are you gonna drop everything and go? Or what if you're on your way to work, or it's 8 o'clock in the morning and your kid's, yeah, but mom, it's supposed to be hot today, let's go get ice cream. I'm broke. Yes, that's another one. Excellent. So thinking about these very basically is a great first step for flaws. So when we approach these questions, the first thing that we have to do is find the main conclusion. 90% of LSAT stimuluses are arguments. And if it's an argument, it means it has a conclusion. So we have to find that always, no matter what. And then once we find it and we see that it's a flaw question, we have to go back and understand the reasoning. So why is this particular author trying to make this claim? So in my example, it was, it's hot outside, therefore we should get ice cream. My main conclusion is it's hot outside. That's pretty easy reasoning to understand. My reasoning is it's hot outside. But then whenever we're on the LSAT, before you go into the answer choices, ask yourself, why does this support not 100% prove the conclusion? So in my example, it was, I'm hot outside. So why does being hot outside not 100% prove the conclusion? And those are some things that we already said here. And this is where we really want to kill the argument. While there are specific flaw types that we can memorize, there's two things that we can think about on a more simple basis before we really get faster by memorizing these other flaws. And is what is the argument taking for granted? And what is the argument presuming without providing justification? So what does taking for granted mean? Go ahead and raise your hand or give me a reaction if you know, and I can call on you. All right, Zach, what does taking for granted mean?
Kind of like I would say either assumes or doesn't really put any, like they're taking for granted. They're just assuming that it's going to be there. They're just assuming it's the case, or that the outcome's always going to be the same.
Yes, I like to think of taking for granted is it doesn't consider something. So in my argument, it's overlooked. Oh, Joshua, excellent. He just said overlooked possibility. Excellent. So in my argument, it's hot outside, therefore we should get ice cream. What am I overlooking? Potentially, there could be a million things. Go ahead and put some in the chat, please. Excellent. Michael said availability of ice cream. Angelica said money. Josh said maybe we should get an icy or a cold drink. Yes. Excellent. Maybe I'm on a diet, or maybe, like I said earlier, I'm lactose intolerant. There's a lot of things that we're not considering. Oh yeah, Michael said plans for the day. Maybe we haven't ate our dinner yet. So always think about it as 100%, like we go in with these very critical minds. Excellent. So takes for granted always means, what are we not considering? What are we not thinking about? Why is this not 100% the thing that we should do? And then the other way that we can kill an argument is what's called presumes without providing justification. And what is that in everyday language? Nicole, do you know?
I think it's maybe assuming without backing it up.
Yes, excellent. So yes, so whenever I see the words presumes without providing justification, I automatically cross it off in my head and just say assumes. So in my argument, it's hot outside, therefore we should get ice cream. What am I assuming?
That ice cream would possibly make it not as hot outside, or ice cream will cool you down.
Yeah, super close. Was that Nikki that said? I
Yes.
think mainly that ice cream is saying that we're assuming that like whenever it's hot, you just must get ice cream, or like whenever it's hot, like whenever it gets hot outside, getting ice cream is the appropriate response. It's super simple, but we're kind of assuming that that's what you do. The only thing we should do. Excellent. So what, I know I said that we're not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but what are some of the most common flaws on the LSAT? And these aren't just on flaw questions, but just in any argument type. There's 2 or 3 that we see all the time. Yes, Zach said in the chat, consuming sufficient for necessary, or vice versa. Excellent. What were you gonna say, Angelica?
I was gonna say correlation and causation.
Yes, causation. I was lucky. I had a 6th grade science teacher that beat into my head that correlation does not equal causation. And this one happens a lot where they give us 2 things that we think like, oh, well, this one's going up and this one's going up, and it makes sense that one is causing the other. But just because it makes sense or these two things are correlated with one another does not mean one is causing the other. And what is the third most common flaw? Overgeneralization is a good one. I would say that's a common one. Appeal to authority is another pretty common one. And then I like to think, like I call it false dichotomy, but some people call it false dilemma or either or thinking. And that's whenever, because like if one thing doesn't happen, it has to be the other extreme. And so I oftentimes play a clip that says, you're either for us or against us. And that's not necessarily true, right? You might not be for me, but that doesn't mean that you're necessarily against me, correct? There's this whole area in between. And that would fall into like that fails to consider argument. All right, so I want everyone to go ahead and try this question completely cold, like just as a warm